Welcome to the HR Chat Show, one of the world's most downloaded and shared podcasts designed for HR pros, talent execs, tech enthusiasts, and business leaders. For hundreds more episodes and what's new in the world of work, subscribe to the show, follow us on social media, and visit hrgazette.com.
Bianca, it is my pleasure to welcome you to the HR Chat Show today. Hello, thank you for joining me.
Hello, Mr. Bill Banham. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited.
I like Bianca, listeners. Bianca's cool, and she's spoken at a disrupt event that I was involved with, and we've got to know each other over the last little while. And above and beyond all of that, she's really, really patient, because we were supposed to have recorded this interview quite some time ago, and it got moved a couple of times. The best excuse I had was we had our second kid, which arrived like the day before we were going to record. But we finally got here, Bianca. I am very happy about that, because you are a cool human being and you do cool stuff.
I am just so happy that I have on record someone calling me patient.
There you go. It's on the record, everyone. It's on the record.
I will be
why don't you start?
My close ones.
Please share this episode with everyone. Why don't you start by sharing your journey and what led you to the founding the company? Can you just take us back and talk us through?
Yeah, absolutely. So always been fascinated with human health, human behavior. Why do people think and feel the way they do? I studied psychology at university. The idea was to pursue a career in therapy and work on that sort of one-to-one side of things. I always explain that my career has been a very spaghetti-like career. So the therapy plan didn't quite work out. 3 weeks after I graduated, I found out that my dad had 3 months left to live. He was a super healthy individual. He wasn't a big drinker. He had never had a cigarette, out on his bike every morning. And so it was a huge spanner in the works. And the first time in my life that I was sort of faced with something that felt totally out of my control and totally unpredictable. And as a result of that, I had to get a job very quickly. Being in my early 20s, solely motivated by money. I wanted to buy my dad his health. If I couldn't buy him his health, I wanted to buy him a Ferrari. He was a very Italian man. It couldn't be anything else. And so on that mission, I started my career in tech sales floor of 800 people, one of very few women, youngest person in the company, worked my way up through the company, was sort of doing at some points 20-hour days, 7 days a week, and just throwing everything I had into that job, and was doing okay at it, was doing well at it. And then my father passed away. I was hospitalized. The doctors said that I'd effectively gone through like a 2-year burnout, to the point where my stomach walls could no longer work. I couldn't digest my food. I couldn't sleep lying down. I had fibromyalgia, so I was in pain from head to toe, anxious, depressed, you name it, I had it. Took a year out, went traveling, bought a tuk-tuk called Tina, traveled to Sri Lanka, lived with Aborigines in Australia, got as far away from London life as possible, but very much went on my own personal development journey during that time and trying to get my mental and physical health back on track. That then led to me, when I came back to England, adding to my qualifications, going into one-to-one coaching. So I've actually, I think it's now closer to 12,000 one-to-one coaching hours. I've coached everything from Hollywood celebrities to England rugby players to businessmen and women, top CEOs, to stay-at-home mums and dads and everything in between. And have a lot of experience in that one-to-one coaching. That then led to me wanting to provide that level of coaching at more scale. So I started delivering talks, designing wellbeing strategies. I've worked with American Express, Snapchat, University of Cambridge, Philip Morris, large global organizations with regards to their wellbeing. And then on that journey, it led to HumanOS, which is my baby. You just had a baby. I had a baby last year, slightly different babies. But my baby, and what we're trying to do is combine that very human coaching side of things on all areas of health and wellbeing with the data, with the strategy piece to actually build more effective wellbeing strategies within the workplace.
Supporting over 6 million employees across 180 countries, NeoCase is a pioneering SaaS platform for automating HR service delivery, and we are proud to support this episode of the HR Chat podcast. Our clients use NeoCase to achieve faster time to value through reduced implementation costs and real productivity gains. Learn how your team can reduce time spent on administrative tasks through process automation and workflow efficiencies using NeoCase at neocasesoftware.com.
Okay, thank you very much for sharing. Let's talk a bit more about HumanOS then. I'd like to get your take on where employee wellbeing is going wrong at the moment, and then, of course, how HumanOS is trying to solve some of those problems, is trying to help. What makes you guys unique?
Yeah, I mean, it's such a good question. And I think break it down firstly, like where is employee well-being going wrong? Like really, without sounding too depressing, where is it going right now? When you look at the data and what's going on in the workplace, all the data is going in the direction we don't want it to go. It's become very transactional, and organizations have very much approached it for the last sort of couple of decades of how much value can I get from these people, as opposed to actually how much value can I give these people. And if you think about it with our own personal relationships, if we went about our lives just thinking how much can I extract from the individuals I'm surrounding myself with, we're not going to have very good relationships. But that's exactly what's gone on in the workplace. And so what's then been created is a really unsustainable working approach from the corporates, from the individuals. And so at HumanOS, what we're trying to do is almost be that cultural change agent. And, you asked a really good question of like, how do we stand out? What makes us different? I think there's not just HumanOS. I think there's a lot of corporate wellbeing solutions now who have come through off the back of there being so many corporate wellbeing solutions that aren't working and that aren't doing what they said they're meant to do, or aren't doing it for the right reasons. And so what we're trying to do is really bring that sort of humanity to it again, but actually base it on the data, base it on the science, allow organizations to make effective decisions based upon what's going on within their workplace.
It's that time in the conversation where I ask my guests to offer some practical tips, some strategies. What do companies need to do to ensure that they build effective wellbeing strategies? What are some of those stages? What are some of the conversations that you'd have if you're going into an organization?
I think at a very basic level, firstly, when it comes to wellbeing, I think organizations have it really tough as well. They've tried so many things, they haven't worked, they don't get engagement, they don't get results. And so they've thrown a lot of money in these areas, but it's like, even with good intentions, they're not working. So I think from a very practical sense, it's not about the bells and whistles. It's actually about how do you meet the basic psychological needs of your people again. And it's almost taking a step back to take two steps forward. So companies are doing great things like, okay, let's give our employees free gym memberships. But what if they don't have the time or energy to go to the gym? Or let's put all these perks in the office, whether that's free fruit, whether it's meditation rooms, whether it's comfy ergonomic chairs. But then actually, what if people don't want to be in the office every day? And also, a lot of what organizations are doing is very reactive. So they have these great EAPs in place, and if they have an EAP that's actually working, but that's very much a case of what do we do when things go wrong? And so from a practical sense, it's what are you implementing to stop things going wrong in the first place, in terms of your training, in terms of meeting those basic psychological needs, in terms of your culture, in terms of your values. What are you implementing to prevent the problems in the first place?
Thanks for listening to this episode of the HR Chat podcast. If you enjoy the audio content we produce, you'll love our articles on the HR Gazette. Learn more at hrgazette.com. And now, back to the show.
Bianca, I mentioned earlier on in this episode that one of the cool things that you and I have managed to get up to so far is you were kind enough to come and join me at a Disrupt London event within the Wellnology Festival by Nick Steert and the team.
Mm-hmm.
I'd love for you, and it was good fun despite the terrible weather that we had.
I'm still cold.
I'd love for you now to take a couple of minutes, if you don't mind, and tell our listeners a bit about your session during that disrupt periods, your experiences there, and also I happened to catch you on the panel about 30 minutes later, so maybe you can mention the panel as well.
Yes, sure. So it was my first disrupt talk pitch, which I was really excited and also really nervous for. And I didn't know if I was going to absolutely smash it or it'd be an absolute car crash, because it's one of those things, if you've never done it, you really have no idea how you're going to respond to 30 seconds a slide and the slide's just moving. But I really enjoyed it. It was a really great, all the speakers that day I just thought were phenomenal. It was so interesting hearing everyone else. What I discussed was a lot around the Human Capital Trends report by Deloitte and the human sustainability piece. And actually, a bit of what I touched upon at the beginning is how do we move away from this very extractive approach, transactional approach we have between employer and employee, and actually how are we creating value for our employees beyond just the day-to-day work. And so again, keeping it practical and what does that look like? We touched looking at sort of management training, trying to make sure we're training individuals on human-based skills, not just job-based skills. 83% of managers nowadays have had no formal training. And also, if we look at the traditional route to being promoted within the workplace, that's always come through becoming a manager. And to become a manager, you get more money. And obviously people want money a lot of the time, but they don't necessarily want to actually manage more people. So it's resulted in a huge sort of challenges around that management piece. So we touched on actual management training, human-based skills, not just job-based skills. That then ties into the workload piece, which we know is a huge stressor in the workplace at the moment. We touched upon this 360 approach to wellbeing, which is really fundamental right now. Again, like I said earlier, organizations have a lot of things in place, but if their individuals don't want to use them or they're not meeting their needs, then they're fairly redundant. So actually, how can we ensure that we have strategies and we have benefits, even though it shouldn't be a benefit? What do we have in place that ensures that our people can get what they need when they need it, that's right for them? And also we touched upon the sort of giving people purpose again, which I think is so important right now. The way the world's changing, the levels of technological advancement, the political unrest, the economic instability, there is so much going on in the world, and it feels really scary for a lot of people at times and very unstable. We as the employers, as a society, we need to be giving our individuals purpose again. And so we looked at that and what does that look like? And actually, how do we make sure the business and their values align with the individual and their values, and start to just create really good relationships between the two again?
Hi, everybody. This is Bob Goodwin, president at Career Club. Imagine with me for a minute a workplace where leaders and employees are energized, engaged, and operating at their very best. At Career Club, we work with both individuals and organizations to help combat stress and burnout that lead to attrition, disengagement, and higher healthcare costs. We can help your organization and your workforce thrive, boosting both productivity and morale across the board. To learn more about how we might help you and your company, visit us at career.club.
Okay, very good. And if you want to check out Bianca's Disrupt London talk, you can do that right now. You just go over to disrupthr.co and then you can find the city of London, and then it'll be up there ready to impress you. Bianca, that almost takes us to the end of this particular conversation today. Before we do wrap up, how can our listeners connect with you and learn more about all the cool things you're getting up to?
So Bianca Errigo on LinkedIn, ERRIGO. HumanOS.co.uk is our website. We're also HumanOS on LinkedIn. There's a few HumanOSs, so it can be a little bit confusing. And that's generally best to find me.
Perfect. Well, that just leaves me to say for today, Bianca, thank you very much for being my guest on this episode of the HR Chat Show.
Thank you so much for having me, Bill. It's been a pleasure and worth the weight in gold.
And listeners, as always, until next time, happy working.
Thanks for listening to the HR Chat Show. If you enjoyed this episode, why not subscribe and listen to some of the hundreds of episodes published by HR Gazette? And remember, for what's new in the world of work, subscribe to the show, follow us on social media, and visit hrgazette.com.
This episode of the HR Chat podcast is supported by Deal. Are you looking for an all-in-one solution to manage your global workforce? With Deal, you can easily onboard global employees, streamline payroll processes, and ensure local compliance, all in one flexible, scalable platform. Join thousands of companies who trust Deal with their global HR needs. Visit Deal.com today, that's DEEL.com, to see how you can start managing your global team with unmatched speed, flexibility, and compliance. Thanks, and we hope you enjoy this HR Chat episode.